Well, welcome everybody to the very first Vineyard Church of DuPage service here at this new facility. If it feels, if you're here tired, I understand that. You've been working all week. If you walked in and feels a little chaotic, that's because it is. We're in process, and it's. I'm really excited and really tired. It's a really interesting combination. Excitement tends to give you energy, and I also want to take a nap. So, but let me do a few announcements just to get everybody kind of caught up on where things are, and we'll move into the teaching, and we'll have some time for worship and to pray for each other. If you walked in, if you've been here, if you've been part of the Evangel Baptist and you're here, we're really glad you could join us today. Probably looks a little bit different. If you haven't been here all week long, the building and some of the ways that things are laid out probably looks different from any given day that you walked in. And that's probably going to continue over the next few months. The ideal, at least my ideal, would be you walk in and everything is done perfectly, ready to go. and that's never happened. So we'll be making changes, as we go. There's repairs that we'll need to do, some that you'll see, some that you won't. We'll need to put a new roof on, we found out. So you probably won't see that. Most of you didn't drive up and say, wow, look at the roof. I suspect you didn't do that. But so it's things like that you won't see. Painting or moving things around. On any given week, you might see some new things somewhere, or some things that aren't there, or some things that are in different places. And all that means is we're slowly progressing. And that's a good thing. It's just going to be part of the deal. And it'll take a while. I'll try and keep you updated on how things are going and what the whole process is and where we are. For today, I got just a couple things I want to mention. One, you hopefully got a bulletin when you came in, and we'll get them in the seats as well, behind the pews. There's a pen handy. If you could just grab that for a minute, and let me point out a couple things in there. One is the connection card. Do we have an echo? Is that me? Am I staying in the wrong place? Or? Okay. We're learning as we go. Go.
Sound good though.
So if you could grab that and take that pen that's near you, that you got, it's in the bulletin, and fill it out. We'll be collecting that a bit later. We use these for a couple of different things. One is just to keep track of this information so we can get out information to you on things going on, upcoming events, things like that. On the back is a place for prayer requests because we want to be a praying church and have seen God answer prayer and want to be praying for each other. So if you've got things, and by the way, please don't put down something like world peace, peace of Jerusalem or anything like that. This is for you, your family, people you're personally closely connected with that we are praying for. So if you have things like that, feel free to put them down. You can do it in full sentences. I've got people who write very flowery descriptions and others who give me bullet points. Boom, boom, boom. Doesn't matter, but however you do it, if you could fill that in as well. If you have prayer request needs, that would be great. There's also two other things in there, an offering envelope. A lot of us, give online or give other ways, but if you want to give at church, we'll have the offering each week. And there's a place to do that. And then there's a separate building fund. We've been raising money over the last month or two just to do some of the work here, the repairs and updating and different things. And the pace of that will probably happen depending on how funds come in. And as we, get money for different things, we'll do that. And we have a kind of a plan of what we'll do first and second and third, and we'll just go through that. So as the Lord moves you, feel free to fill that out, drop it in. You can donate online, all that kind of stuff as well. Now, two events are coming up. This is our first Sunday here. It's been funny because all week I've had people saying, I'm so sorry, I'm going to be out of town for vacation or my business trip or whatever. My wife has been repenting all week because she's actually not here. She's out in Utah picking up our daughter to bring her back from internship. She's like, I feel guilty, I'm not there. I said, yeah, I know. We have to make you work double when you get back. You use what you can get. Anyway, so September 17th, though, is going to be our official grand opening. And all that means is that we hope to have a number of things done, and I want to encourage you to be praying for that and invite people. We'll publicize that. Hopefully we'll know where all the rooms are by then and have things somewhat organized. So be praying for that. As we get into the end of summer and fall starts, it's a busy season with kids going back to school and different things starting. But be praying for that because that's the kind of date we're targeting to say, we're here, we're in charge, let's go forward. The other thing that is coming up that's not in your bulletin is 3 weeks from yesterday, on August 26th, we decided we're going to do a massive garage/yard sale. Now, if you go down to the gym, you're going to see it filled with stuff. There's tons of stuff that has been here in the building. There's tons of stuff that we brought over, way more than we need. So we thought, let's give it away or sell it. Okay? So, and then we thought, well, let's just make it a big event. We'll publicize it to the whole community and have some fun and make some money that will go to the building fund as well. So we're going to sell all that. And in addition, if you want to get rid of stuff, one person's junk is another person's treasure, bring it. We will bring it and we will do a massive garage sale. You see the multi-family garage sales. When I go garage sailing, that's what I look for, because I want to get the most up in the smallest area. Well, let's have a multi-family, multi-generational, multi garage sale. We'll fill the gym and the yard, and then whatever doesn't sell, we'll just give away. We'll bless the Salvation Army or Goodwill or something like that. And go from there. So that's in 3 weeks. So we'll get more information out to you, by email the next few Sundays. But we have a lot of stuff to contribute to other people. So that's also coming up. So it's going to be busy. It's a moving target. It feels like that to me. Like we're just kind of scrambling as we go, and we are. I'm still telling people walk through the building, say, I'm lost. Where do I go? Okay, the stairs are over there. We're good. But it won't take long to get that all sorted. So let's jump in to our topic this morning. I actually want to do a couple things today. I want to do a little bit of looking back and a little bit of looking ahead, and just kind of put this move and what God's doing in context. I want to play a short video clip. This is from the movie The A-Team. So if you like chick flicks, this isn't one of them. But there's a couple lines in this particular clip where they are being chased and attacked by someone who's trying to shoot them down in a helicopter. And the way they escape that I found very interesting. So let's see, this is an experiment. We've not done this here before, I haven't. Can we go ahead and...
Close the door! I know you're airborne rangers, but that was ridiculous! You're gonna be okay! Oh, the idea is to kill Tuco, that's the other way around! Step ahead of the game, this is the plan, kid! To the 3 steps ahead! Leaving an enemy's move before it's even made! That's the plan!
Gotcha. Lock on my LC.
General Tuco, we're currently engaged in unauthorized warfare on United States military personnel. No. You engage me! Repeat, you engaged in unauthorized warfare on United States military personnel.
Over United States
Airspace.
What?
Alpha.
Fight.
In other words, adios, mother.
There's a plan and everything, kid. And I love it when a plan comes together.
I don't know if you can hear all that. Did the sound come out clearly enough?
Yes.
So, there's a couple lines in there. The guy in the back is saying, "Boss, I'll never doubt you again." I don't know if you've ever said that to God. Had those moments. He talked about his plan is, defeating the enemy 3 moves before the enemy makes his move. Knowing ahead of time what the enemy's going to do, and says there's a plan in everything, and then lights a cigar. And I love it when a plan comes together. I have this fantasy that there's times, I'm not sure if God smokes cigars, but where God looks down at what he's been doing and says, I love it when a plan comes together. He's got all these things, and then there's a moment where, boom, it comes together. And I have kind of felt that way during this time. Frankly, there's been a sense of God having his hand on things in ways before we ever even knew about it, and then bringing a plan together. And this isn't the end of the plan, this is just the next step. But I want to cover that a little bit. The Bible tells us often to remember. If you go through the New and Old Testament, there's many places where over and over God's people are encouraged to remember. Remember what God has done. Remember where you've come from. Remember what you've done, what you've been through. Remember how God has come through for you. Because that, in one, builds gratitude, but it also builds faith for the future. I've had many times, you probably have as well, when you're going through something, and when you're going through it, it's confusing. It's hard. You're going, I don't know what's going on. God, where are you? What's happening? But then afterwards, when you look back, you can say, oh, I get it now. I can see how you were at work in that situation and how you were working through it. And in the middle of it, it's not always clear because we don't have that perspective. afterwards we can look back and go, wow, God, that was amazing the way you set that up and brought the right pieces at the right time and the right person to do this, and this person had that word of encouragement, and it all came together. We don't always see it in the moment, we see it after the fact. And so I want to look back a little bit at how I think God has brought some of these pieces together. You know, for those of you who don't know, you know, this church, the Vineyard, actually started back around 2000. And Bob Baker decided to try and plant a church, felt like the Lord wanted a vineyard in this area, and try to get started. Some of you were here back then, and over the next 7 years, it was, I would say, from what I wasn't here, but it was a difficult time. There was lots of attempts to do things and work put in, and things, some worked, a lot didn't. And eventually, you know, Bob left, I think, in 2007, but there was a small group that stayed together. About 20 people who felt like, oh, God really wants this church here, and we're not sure what that's going to look like, but He wants it. And John Martin, who's in back, wait, John, that's John. You know, John took over leadership for a while and said, let's hold us together and pray. He would say now that that was a hard year. John's my brother-in-law, by the way. He doesn't usually want people to know that, but but you know, the end of that year, at Christmas time, we had been pastoring, we had left our church, and we were at Christmas, and John started, you know, asking me, hey, don't you think you ought to come out here to you know, Wheaton area and take over leadership of this church? And I said, no. He said, no, really, would you even consider it? And I said, no. And, you know, after a while, it's really hard when you see a grown man cry, you know. And he was begging, and I said, well, we'll think about it. And eventually we felt the Lord, you know, we said, we'll come out on a temporary basis just to help out until, you know, you figure out what you, the small group, wants to do. Well, have you ever done something where the Lord got you to do it on a temporary basis? You know, the very first church I became part of and joined, I said, well, God, I'll do it for a year. And 9 years later, I'm the pastor and still, you know, getting ready to move on. The thing for me is I was at a personal place that was very difficult. I was hurting. We'd gone through some really hard times. Wasn't sure I was any good at this pastoring thing, and questioned if I even wanted to still be a pastor. And here he's coming saying, don't you want to be a pastor? And I'm saying, no. And it wasn't really a Jonah type moment, you know, where I was running from God. I was just kind of walking fast, you know, because it was just a very hard time personally. It was very confusing. But honestly, it was a time where God shut every other door. And we felt His encouragement and felt Him moving us, you know, forward. But also, if I had wanted to do something else, God just kept saying no, 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 no. Every door. I mean, doors that would make no sense for them to close. It was just one of those times where, you know, God's kind of hemming you in. And I felt very hemmed in. But over time, He made it very clear to Anita and I that we were supposed to be here. This was the next assignment, that He wanted us here, and I was like, okay, Lord, I mean, at the end of the day, I can agree or disagree, but you're the boss, and I gave you my life, and I'm going to do what you want me to do. You know, and sometimes eagerly, and sometimes kicking and screaming, but I'm going to do what you want me to do. Right? You all, I'm not telling you anything that's a surprise, right? You've all had those kicking and screaming moments, and other times where you were really excited. But with hindsight, I can look back and realize that while it was a difficult decision at the time, it was clearly God leading. Clearly God's hand in that process in so many ways. More than I can take time to go through all of them right now. But God made it clear that we aren't here by accident. This is part of His plan. With all of our strengths and gifts and abilities, and all our weaknesses and problems and insecurities, the total package, God says, here, I want this in the Wheaton area, in DuPage. And okay. And I say that because that's true for many of you as well. Some of you are wondering, how did I end up in this church anyways? You just kind of walked in one day and I saw the sign, I'd never heard of a vineyard, and I walked in. Others were intentional, but you found suddenly you're here and you actually have a sense that I'm supposed to be here. I'm not sure why I'm supposed to be here, but I'm supposed to be here. Well, that's because God is putting something together. He has a plan that's in motion. He's bringing the pieces together. And you're part of it. Now, my big question when God started making clear we were supposed to be here is, God, why? Why in the world would you send us to the Wheaton area? I mean, it's not like there's a lack of churches around, right? And not like a lack of good churches around. Like God, there's a lot of churches. You know, our first church plant was in the inner city of Chicago. The need was very obvious, right? Our next one was in Oak Park, which is not poor like inner city was, but very, very secular area. Not religious at all, and not particularly friendly to religion in any way, shape, or form, or to churches. And so the need was obvious. And he says out here, I'm like, God, what? There's only like 7 non-Christians in Wheaton. I mean, what do you? Why don't you send us there? And you know, that was an issue. You know, it's like I'll go where you want me to go, God. I just want to know what you want me to do. And it became clear, and over time, God spelled that out. He said, well, there's actually a reason. You're supposed to be a different kind of church. And that's not a knock on other churches. Don't hear that. I'm just communicating what I felt God impressed on us. But to be a place where people actually experience and encounter God, experience His goodness and His power and the reality of His love and His truth in a way that's not just intellectual, but hits at every level of who we are as a people. To be a safe place where people could learn and grow. To be a healing place. And healing people who've been hurt by the world and been hurt by the church. Some of us carry scars from the church that are deeper than anything we've been hurt by in the world. But to be a place of healing, to be a place of training, where people can learn how to minister in the power of the Holy Spirit, can pray for the sick, and receive words of encouragement from the Lord to give to other people, and operate in His power and not just our own. You know, I felt from the beginning like, you know, there's a model of church where the pastor's the guy up front who does everything in the ministry and is the answer man. That's not us, guys. If you know me at all, you know that's not us. But we're to be a place where everybody gets to play. Everybody ministers. And we're supposed to be training people on how to do that. Okay? So it doesn't just happen by chance or that the really aggressive people get to do it. No, this is for everybody. To be a place that reaches modern people who have all kinds of issues and stereotypes about the church, right? That's, and I find there's a lot more of them in the Wheaton area than I thought. So, and then he gave us Isaiah 61. I'm just going to read that. I'm not going to teach through it, but as a description of who we're to be as a church. It says this, "The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, proclaim freedom for the captives, and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, and provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They'll be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for display of His splendor." And it goes on, I'm not going to read the whole passage, I'll let you do that. But as a description of the ministry He called us to, that's about as good as it gets. Now, so we came out, and when we came, the group, you know, the church had maybe 20 people if everybody showed up and we counted pregnant women as 2. You know, that's how pastors count, just for the record, you know. And our family walked in, and we grew by 20% that Sunday. It was amazing. But if you were there then, you know, we were in this small, odd-shaped room with low ceilings and bad acoustics, and it was really cheap, which was really good, but not exactly conducive to much of anything. But then God started to grow us, and we grew. And from the get-go, this was like now 2009, 8 years ago, we started looking for another place. And we looked for years and couldn't find anything. And we got to the place, we filled that little room pretty much, and can't add any more people, there's no more space. And we said, Lord, this is, you know, if we can't put more people in here, it doesn't matter, nothing's going to happen. And nothing, year after year. And then a couple years ago, it opened up for us to get this space over on College Avenue. We thought, finally. And we moved in there, we raised funds to fix it up, it was just a warehouse, and we thought, this is going to be home. We raised money, we were going to build a stage and build a little cafe in, and we had all these plans. And then, nothing. We couldn't get permits from the city, and after 6 months, you know the story, the guy from Wheaton College oversaw sat down with me and said, Dave, I know we all thought this is long-term, but actually no, we're going to stop renting to everybody. You got to be out in a year and a half. Now, we'd spent 5 or 6 years already looking for a place. So the thought of, oh, we've got to find one out in a year and a half, it's like, oh no. How's that going to happen? I don't know. And lo and behold, through a series of events, I heard about what was happening at Evangel, came over here one day, walked in, never been here. Pastor Dave happened to be here, walked into the office, sat down, he gave me some time, we talked for an hour, toured the building, and said, are you interested? I said, yeah. So we put an offer in. And if you were around and you've heard the story even on the video, the offer was, I had to apologize when we made it because it was so much less than the value of the building. I said, this is all we can do, this is what we can afford, and so please don't be insulted. We know it's an act of grace if you give it to us. And then, just as that was happening, and you guys don't all know this, I don't think, but a year ago, last fall, we had what I fondly call the Exodus. And in about a 6 to 8 week period, as we're praying about, hey, should we put an offer in on this building, about 25% of our church left. And it wasn't a split or something, it was this family got a job change, and these families felt called to this ministry, and this one had a baby and wanted to move home to be closer to parents. But by the end of the day, a quarter of the church was gone. I'm going, Lord, this is not a church growth approach here, Lord. If we're looking at buying something that we're going to take a step of faith in, I want to take a step of faith, but I don't want to take a step of stupid. I'm not in favor of that. And so I'm like, God, what are you doing here? What are you saying to us? And I'm praying and asking God what to do. And he gives me this verse, Isaiah 54, 2 through 4. Enlarge the place of your tent. Stretch your tent curtains wide. Do not hold back. Lengthen your cords. Strengthen your stakes. For you will spread out to the right and to the left. Your descendants will dispossess nations and settle in their desolate cities. Do not be afraid. You will not suffer shame. Don't fear disgrace. You will not be humiliated. I'm like, okay, Lord, we just lost 25% of our people, which include the people leading our kids' ministry, our mom's ministry, one of our board members, all faithful givers. And I'm going, Lord, this is not where you say, stretch out your stakes, lengthen we're going the wrong direction. So it was a little bit of a faith challenge to me. And if I say a little bit, I'm lying. It was a big faith challenge. Okay, what am I going to do here? What are we going to do here? Am I going to believe what the Lord says? That's pretty common. Actually, someone came up to me a week later and said, I had this scripture for you. I was praying for you, and the Lord gave me Isaiah 54. Does that mean anything to you? No. you know that feeling. So I feel like the Lord confirmed it, like, okay, we're supposed to do this. But I also know from history that the stakes get high. I remember I was exercising, I was talking with my friend Tim, and we were talking about this, and I said, it feels like God's inviting me to bet the farm. And if you know that phrase, it means bet everything. And if you win, you win, but if you lose everything. Because I'm going, okay, my job, my paycheck, my community, well, this feels like a big bet. Now, I've made those bets before, to be honest. But it's different when you're 23 and betting the farm, right? You only have a really small farm. And lots of years to recover if it doesn't work out. I'm older than that now. And betting the farm feels like a whole different level of bet, right? There's not 20 or 30 or 40 years to recover if that goes bad. So it was, in that sense, a very personal challenge from the Lord, or not challenge, that's the wrong word, invitation, I'll say it that way. Are you going to bet on me? Or are you going to trust what you see? Now, it's easy to talk about that now, but in the moment, that felt like a pretty big question. That wasn't a simple bet. But we felt like God made it clear, so we put an offer in, and then, Evangel came back and said, no, we're turning it down. We're taking this to other churches. And part of me was very disappointed, and part of me was like, okay, I made the bet, and God got me out of the game. This is good. However, you know the story, January, that other deal didn't work out. Stu from the church called me or contacted me and said, are you guys still interested? And we met, and it was fascinating how God just put everything together in a really short time. Like 8 weeks we had a deal. And I was talking with Charlie Matthews. Charlie was on the negotiating team just a couple weeks ago, and he filled me a little bit. He said, after we met with you guys the first time, I went back to some of the people on the team and said, well, this just got harder. He said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, you felt it, didn't you? I said, yeah, I felt it. Felt what? Well, I felt a sense of connection, a heart connection about the vision for what a church should be and impacting the community, and a sense of God's presence in the meeting. Like, God, this is not like a bunch of people having a business meeting. There's a sense of God is in this. And that, by the way, never changed. Every time we met, we had that sense of, this is different. Like, God's in this. And in 8 weeks, we had an agreement on terms and all this stuff. And the spirit of it, and I've said this before, but it still amazes me. This only happens in the kingdom, where both sides are trying to bless the other side, instead of just trying to get the most you can and get every penny and get every advantage. It was like, how can we bless you? And the folks at Evangel team came back and said, well, here, we think this will work for you. It was really generous. Where we come back and say, well, that does work for us, but if we give you a little more money, does that work for you better? And I've never had someone say, if I give you more money, will that work for you? No one says no to that. But it was, a sense we talked like, this is not normal negotiations. This only happens in the kingdom. And it only happens when God is at work pulling a plan together. Pulling those different pieces together that we couldn't all see. And we couldn't necessarily see how the timing of our permits, for example, I skipped this part, but we, back at the other location, we were trying to build, we couldn't get permits for 6 months to build a silly stage. And I was so mad. I'm doing spiritual warfare, and I'm getting angry at the incompetence of someone, and we finally get the permits, and the day the work is supposed to start is when Tony, the guy there, tells me, oh, we can't rent to you. Race from lunch back home, tell the carpenter, stop, we're done. Had we gotten the permits 2 weeks earlier, we would have spent $30,000 or $40,000, and we would have never gotten that. God's timing. Where I'm rebuking the devil, and all of a sudden it's like, oops, sorry, thanks, God. Whoop, my bad. But in the moment, I couldn't see it. But with hindsight, you can look back and see, wait, God has had his hand on us from the beginning. That was like a year and a half ago, over a year ago, when that happened. And God setting things up for what was going to come later. A plan coming together. Now the last thing I'll mention. We asked our landlord back there at Wheaton College, said, would you just agree to just not have us pay rent for a while? Just to bless us as a process. And they said yes. They gave us a month's free rent, which is almost $6,000, by the way. Wow, thank you. Now, I don't know if you realize how unusual that is. Because I gave them a letter saying, we're moving, here's the situation, and would you consider just not having us pay rent? I realize you get nothing out of this. We're the only one who benefits. You don't owe it to us. There's no rational reason for you to do it, but it would just be a gift of grace. Would you do it? And they came back and said, yeah. So, wow, everybody's acting like Christians in this deal. Right? Just grace. Just grace. But God pulling pieces together. My point is, it's not an accident or just good luck or good timing that we're here right now today. It's part of a plan I think God has actually had in motion for a long time. And in the middle of it, you can't see it. And by the way, I don't think the plan is done. But we're caught up in something bigger than ourselves. that God is doing step by step. Moving people, moving places, moving things in the kingdom forward. And now, let me just make this really clear, because I want you all to hear this. If you hear nothing else, hear this. We aren't here, and God hasn't been doing all this stuff because he loves church buildings. He didn't look down and say, man, that's a wonderful building. I really want to keep it. That's got nothing to do with it. The building is just a tool to allow people in his kingdom to minister to people, to each other, and people outside the kingdom and bring them in. It's purely a tool. The reason God has done that, the thing we're caught up in, is about his kingdom advancing on earth, people coming into relationship with Jesus, having their lives changed, their hurts healed, and being trained how to minister, to go out and be ambassadors, soldiers, warriors for the kingdom, to bring more people. God's not up there going, man, I really love that paint job. And look at the arch, it's so nice. He's not doing it. He's looking at you and me and saying, I love you. And by the way, there's a whole bunch of people you don't even know yet that I love, and I want to use you to reach them. That's the plan. That's why all this has been leading up to. And now, let me finish up by saying, so where do we go from here? When Israel left Egypt, God brought them out. They spent 40 years wandering around the desert as God dealt with them, and I'm so thankful this was not a 40-year process for us, believe me. Anyway, but when they got to the promised land, I can imagine, they cross over, and they're in it, and they're going, yes, we've gotten here. And you know what that was? That was the beginning. It wasn't the end. It was the beginning of laying hold of what God had for them. And they did more fighting after they crossed into the promised land than they did before. Wait a minute. I thought the promised land was supposed to be all milk and honey. Yeah, but you got to go get the milk and honey. It's not always easy. And here's what God said. Right? Joshua is taken over from Moses. And here's what God says to him. Now remember, they're going to the promised land, right? That they've been shooting at for 40 years. And his first words are, be strong and courageous. Now, you don't say that to someone who doesn't need to be strong and courageous. Which meant they were going to be facing some things that were scary, that felt bigger than them, that were challenging them, that would stretch them. Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore their forefathers to give them. Be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the law my servant Moses gave you. Don't turn from it to the right or left, that you may be successful where you go. Don't let the book of the law depart from your mouth. Meditate on it, so you'll be careful to do everything. Then you'll be prosperous and successful. And he goes on, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Don't be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And then, they got ready and went in. And if you read through the book of Joshua, it wasn't like victory, 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 victory all the time. They had victories and they had defeats and sin they had to deal with, and they got deceived by people sometimes, and it was an ongoing battle to take hold of what God had for them. God had incredible things in store for them, but they didn't just get to sit back and say, lay it on me, God. God says, no, I got it. You got to come get it. But Lord, there's people in between me and that. That's hard for me to get it. I said, yeah, I know. Come get it. I got it for you. I got good things for you. Come and get it. Oh, Lord, okay. So in some ways, this is the first service in here, but being in here isn't the end of the plan, it's the beginning. Right? And I will tell you up front, the Lord leads you to become part of this church. You're already here. It's going to involve some work. It's going to involve some steps of faith. He might invite you to bet the farm on some things. It's worth it. I'm telling you, it's worth it. But the point is to be able to reach beyond ourselves. To reach more hurting people. To reach more lonely people. To reach more lost people who need to know that there's a Savior who loves them. To reach people who are confused, who don't know why they're even here on earth, and wondering that, why do I exist? And discover that, actually God has a plan for your life. You're not an accident. And to train more workers. And, those things don't just happen. We have to actually do them. Right? Roll up the sleeves, get the arms dirty, the hands dirty, and get to work. Training the children. Training the young people. So let me finish this way. It's a season of growth. That starts with prayer. We've been talking about that for all summer. We're going to keep talking about it. Everything God does is fueled and empowered by prayer. And we're going to pray more. We're going to pray lots. It's going to require serving and helping and giving. This week as we're giving, we start getting things organized. Monday night we packed up the other place, and Tuesday night we came here and did a bunch of cleaning out and organizing, and Friday night we moved, and Saturday was, unpacking and getting things sorted, and I sent out emails. I think the subject line was all hands on deck. Okay, guys, this is going to take everybody. And by the way, it was a real blessing. We just say this. I think, we had 15, 20 more people every time we opened the doors for work. Not all the same people, but I feel like everybody's contributing some way or other. There were some people, and I'm going to take a little bit, that were amazing, that put way extra time in. Okay, Chris Swallow, David Valgordon, they worked there. They put so many hours in, above and beyond. Jonathan, Lauren Wolf, Nathan, they're, I should probably not be naming names because someone's going to go, wait a minute, I worked hard, didn't I? Everybody. There was a lot of people who worked. People who came for a couple hours, and by the time they're done, they're sweating because they worked. That's what it takes. So now it's not moving, but it's doing the work of the kingdom. But it's still all hands on deck. Everybody here has gifts, abilities, insight, wisdom that's going to be needed. It's not an accident. God's putting a team together that can make a difference. So I've been as excited about anybody, probably more so than most, about God giving us ability, about God opening the door for this next season. But I'll tell you this, for me personally, I didn't bet the farm so that we could have a building. I didn't make my bet on God so that I could have an office instead of meeting people at Starbucks. That's not what this is about. Not for me, not for any of us. God has placed us here for a reason. And I suspect in a year, 2 years, 5 years, we're going to have a much better understanding of that reason than we even do now. But I know this is about people that God loves and wants to reach. And this building is a tool to enable us to do it. So I'm going to invite the worship team to come on up. I'm going to worship. But I want to invite you. It's kind of a double-edged sword right now, because on the one hand, I want to celebrate. Honestly. What God did in putting this piece together and arranging the sale of the building and everything is amazing to me. And I didn't cover half of all the stuff, all the coincidences that happened in the process, believe me. And I don't know about you, it's exciting to feel like I'm in on something with God, that God is working something out, and you get to be part of it. That's amazing to me. And it's something to celebrate. But the very first thing that Joshua did with Israel when they crossed into the promised land, he said, now prepare yourself. And he invited the camp. What he said is, people, consecrate yourself, which means recommit yourself. Say, God, I'm here for you and your purposes and your kingdom. I'm here to serve you. It's not about me. God, here am I, send me. Put me to work. Show me. And so as we celebrate what God has done, I want to encourage you, just between you and God, say, God, here I am. Use me. I'm in. And you might have different words and bet the farm. Maybe you're a poker player, you need to go all in, I don't know, but whatever it looks like, I want to encourage you, just come to the Lord and say, Lord, go do the work. You know, and here's my unsmooth transition. Normally we start worship with communion. We didn't get it organized this week, so today we're not going to have communion. We will be back to our normal service in the future as we get sorted. We didn't get everything done. However, we did remember that we need to take the offering. Don't read into that, please. But let's go ahead and pass that, and we'll just pass the place down, the aisles, the pews, the place. Drop in your connection card if you could, that'd be a great place to do it. And we'll gather that. And then we're just going to go into some worship. So why don't we, ready to start? Why don't we stand up together and celebrate what God has done and will do, and give ourselves fully to it again.